Hey, what's up? Welcome to Life Inner Show. On the Life Inner Show, we help people make more, work less, and live better. I'm your host, Jason Wojo. I'm joined by my co-host, Polish Peter. What's up, man?
Hey, man, check this out. Okay,
I know. If you're watching this on video, Peter has a new studio because he moved. He's got some sort of plant there. I don't know if it's legal or illegal. We see is that a kindergarten diploma I see on your wall right there? What is that?
Shuddy. That's a diploma that I got when I first started to walk. And the teachers were so proud that finally, when I was 16 years old, I started walking. They were like, I'm so proud of you.
Man, I'm proud. Yeah. I'm proud of you too, Peter. I am very proud of you.
That's right.
Well, I know. So listen, man, dude, we got Jeff Guo on the interview today. I'm super excited for this. Jeff is awesome, man. He's not only just a super nice guy that you actually enjoy being around, and he's friendly, and he's just a super nice guy. Awesome person. But he's super successful in business, and he does it all while he's not compromising his life in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I know Jeff for probably a couple of years now. And when he came in to Life on There, the conversation, and the guy has so much wealth of knowledge. But one thing that I want you guys to consider as you're listening to this particular episode is this. He has shifted the paradigm, what it looks like to invest your time and money and what it takes to go actually be successful without compromising your life. A lot of people in Life on There, when they start looking at investments and real estate and things like that, how can I do this? And how can I do that? And I can't do everything and all that kind of stuff. I don't like doing that. Listen to this particular episode because he, one, dispels this whole myth. Two, we talk about partners, which is a really powerful way of looking at it. And I don't care what business you're in or what the relationships you're in, but I think that's an important aspect. And then the end of this particular episode, he talks about a couple of really important points I think is going to benefit a lot of you guys listening here.
Oh, dude, this episode is a gold mine. I can't wait for you guys to hear it. Let's jump into it right now. Here's our interview with Jeff Guo. Jeff, what's up, man? Welcome to Life Inner Show.
Thank you for having me here, Wojo and Peter. Really appreciate it.
Dude, I got to tell you, I've been trying to track you down for a while, and you've been, so for our listeners, Jeff is actually, you might be our first international podcast live. Is he, Peter? Like, you're from Hong Kong. You're in Hong Kong right now.
And he's an immigrant. I think we're switching the gears over here on this Life on Our Show, going for the interviewing immigrants here.
Well, dude, what time is it over there, by the way?
It's 11:08 p.m. on Thursday.
Okay, you are a rock star for being here, and our listeners and audience appreciates it. So listen, man, I've been trying to track you down for a while. You're in Hong Kong. You got all kinds of awesome stuff going on. Along with, so this is kind of cool too. We might get into this in the podcast. You've actually been quarantined in Hong Kong, yet this is kind of leading into what I want to talk about here is like, I've been hearing all these things about you, man, about like all these great business things that are going on, and you're just killing it and making all these incredible things happen. And which is great in and of itself. Like, anybody just looking at the business side of things would be super impressed just on that. But what really struck me about you and the way you've designed things is you have strategically kind of done things in a way that hasn't resulted in you sacrificing life and everything else important to you along that path. So back us up, tell us like what you're doing now. And like, was this always a thing for you, or how did this actually develop this way? Was this accidental or intentional?
Sure. Absolutely. I'd love to kind of tell you guys a bit more about the business, but right before I get to that, I just want to share one story of, sort of a big origin where I came from. And I think that'll have a lot to do with what about to share with the business. Born and raised in China, came to this country when I was 18 years old for college, grew up in a pretty entrepreneurial, family, if you will. And my mom, who was a 5'2" Chinese lady, 1994, 1995, making $32 US dollars per month, which was a middle class wage back in the time, started her own business, clothing store, went from one store to five to 10 to, 45 or 50 right before she retired when she was 49 years old. And when I asked her mom, your business is going so great, you decide to shut everything down, retire. Do you have any regrets? And that's when my mom was 49 or 50 years old. And she said, yes, I do have one big regret. I said, Mom, what is it? She said, my biggest regret is to not retire earlier because of all the years of time that I have, right? So that's kind of been the main thesis of in my mind ever since. Yes, I want to be an entrepreneur. Yes, I want to be a business. But seeing what my mom has gone through and the one regret that she has, which she wished she could have quit, 1 or 2 or 3 years earlier when she was 45, 46, 47 years old. So that's been pretty big impact for me. So I know one day when I do business, I want to have the business serve our family instead of the other way around. So back to my business, Wojo. So
can I ask a question, Jeff, before you go there? 2 questions actually. One is, did your mom like work a lot? Did this have an impact on your family where you're like, or did she balance it really well and you're like, I want to be like that, or I don't want to be like that, or what was that impact on you?
Sure, absolutely. So when my mom first started her business, I think I was 7 or 8 years old. That's when my parents, were separated. So I spent Monday to Friday with my mom and the weekend with my dad, and et cetera. But my mom works a lot. Like when I say a lot, I mean, because she was a one lady show at the time and grew the company to a pretty sizable scale. But even when she has 50, 60 people on her payroll, I remember Wednesday night at 2 a.m., I woke up and go to the bathroom. My mom would still be working and making notes to employees and making plans for the next day. So to answer your question, absolutely, she works a lot. Yeah.
Okay. So that makes a lot of sense. You had that, you saw what that was like early on. Second question, you came here at 18. Peter came here at 13. Why do you have such better English than Peter?
14.
This is the real question.
Facts, okay? Please learn your facts, okay? It's got a different sexy accent than I do.
So Jeff, okay, we'll just leave that one. That might be a whole episode in itself. So, all right. So tell me about your business now.
Absolutely. So I started this business about 2.5, 3 years ago, and quit my last W-2 job because of, my previous manager. I remember I want to go to our daughter's, one of the events, and was told no. And I said, you know what, that's going to be the last event I'll ever miss. So 2 weeks later, I get my notice. So my main focus for this business, Wojo, is affordable housing, focus on buying affordable housing in southeast part of the U.S., in apartments and mobile home parks and RV parks, because again, it goes back to my original China, right, where people love home ownership, 95% plus, 95% plus home ownership, versus in this country, the home ownership is around low to mid 60s. So just from the culture where I came from, I think there's going to be a growing demand of people who need affordable housing, which is a niche that we're in. So we buy income producing investment properties in apartments, mobile home parks, and RV parks in the southeast part of the U.S., where it's landlord friendly, and also where the population are moving to for the next few decades to come. So,
was that something that you looked at from a demand angle, and you saw an opportunity, or was this something that you felt like a specific passion for? Like, we've talked to Josh, Josh Girak, and he's like, I just love this particular industry and this niche, and like I just love it. But some people are like, hey, I just see a great opportunity here. It fits what I'm trying to do. Like, where do you fall on that?
Sure, absolutely. I think it comes from both angles, because my background, which was the first job out of college, used to work for a REIT. So on the commercial side, retail, and kind of being on the commercial side for a number of years, learned a ton. But at the same time, I mean, just from a demand perspective, I just have a stronger just from a pure demand perspective, I think that residential would be, there's always going to be a demand. Yeah. And also just from the personal perspective, I think people always need a place, a safe place, an affordable place to live. So to be able to provide people with a place that's safe and affordable, as well as, being a sector, which I think is going to be super strong. I think both of those reasons combined is where, I'm at right now.
Got it. And what kind of scale are we talking about in your business here? When you say, you mentioned a number of different kind of sub niches of the affordable housing, like what does this actually look like practically speaking?
Sure, absolutely. So we did quite a few deals this year. With the deals that will close this year, and also much fewer deals last year. On the active side, I'm at a little over 500 units for mobile home parks, RV park, and apartments. But one thing I'm going to say, I buy all the deals with partners. So I'm not the one that owns all of it, and everything is shared with joint venture partners and investors, et cetera.
So, dude, hold on a second. You went to like 500 units in like 2 or 3 years.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. So, all right, we got to dive into this, man. Like that is that's incredible. Like what do you attribute to that success? And we haven't even gotten to this yet, but you've done it in a way that like you still are doing stuff with your family. Whereas I could see somebody who went down that path with that kind of aggression, like, and really hitting the road hard, could sacrifice everything in the process. So tell me about this process and how you did this.
Sure. I think that before the strategy, one thing I've learned a ton is the mindset. I'm a pretty big believer that business is, 80% comes from the mindset, 20% maybe from a strategy. Because people ask me, how did you do it, Jeff? And how did that? So you know what? I'd love to share with you step by step how to do it. But before the strategy is really the mindset. Mm-hmm. And I'll say the two mindset I love the most, again, I did not come up with any of those. It's just learned from other people. Is the first mindset is, 25% of the watermelon is way better than 100% of grapes. Do I want to have tiny little grapes all by myself? Or do I want to have the pie so much bigger, like watermelon, have 25% of that? So that's the first mindset. And the second mindset is every single decision that I make in the business, I focus on the residual income as opposed to transactional income. Nothing wrong with either one, but from the context of having a life, having the freedom, having the flexibility, I know that as long as I am trading my time for money, I can never ultimately have that freedom. So every single decision that me and my business partners do, is this decision going to yield residual or transactional income? And right now, I think 99.9% of all the activities I do on a daily basis will yield to residual as opposed to transactional income. So I think those are the two mindsets I use the most, Wojo, to help me to get to where things are today.
Dude, those are huge. So let me dive into both of these a little bit more. Like, so I've never heard that analogy used. 100% of the grapes are 25% of the watermelon. And so when you say watermelon, you're talking about, for instance, larger investments, but also bringing in partners to help you bring these down and to work with. Is that what you're talking about there? Versus like having a free and clear, like one property on your own, like one small single family home, for instance. Is that kind of, am I understanding that correctly?
Precisely. Absolutely. So, do I want to be part of a bigger project that just do one or two things, or do I want to own a free and clear single family home that I'll do everything from A to Z? And for me personally, again, nothing right or wrong with either one, but I would rather be the former one, that I just do one or two things of a much bigger project. So
tell me about that a little bit. Like, so what is it specific? So when you say that when you say one or two things, are you saying that, break this down for me? Are you in these so for instance, I might be misinterpreting this, but like, when you say you have 100% of a grape, that means you're doing everything for that thing. Are you saying that you're doing kind of one or two things in the business itself, in these deals, and you've just identified a strength zone, or are you saying you just enjoy, bigger, working with other people more than being by yourself? Like because I can see there's a number of angles to this analogy where people could like, hey, I want to be myself versus I want to work with people. Hey, I want something small versus I want something big. It's kind of like a different paradigm, a different model. And so what is it specifically that attracted you to thinking this way?
Sure, absolutely. I think it kind of covered both, Roger. I think it's a bit of both. So, the business, how we structure each deal is deal by deal. Each deal we have, different, investors, and, in terms of partners, it's pretty consistent, one or two, business partners that I work with. So what we do is we'll tackle down those deals, and each deal, as there's so many different moving pieces in order to bring the deal to the finish line, right? Someone needs to find a deal, someone needs to negotiate a deal, someone needs to, raise the capital for the deal, to close the deal, to run the asset management deal, so on and so forth, right? So there's so many different moving pieces. And the parts that I love the most, and I think the strongest fit for me, is I came from the asset management background, used to work for a REIT, oversee a performance of a portfolio of roughly $350 to $400 million. Obviously I did not manage all that by myself, but I get to learn from my mentor and boss how they do that on a very scalable level. And so asset management is one of the core functions that I focus on once we take down the asset, to make sure it's being done on an institutional level. And also, another thing is during the due diligence process and deal analyzing and deal underwriting, raising capital, all that, anything that has anything to do with the numbers, the assumptions, I'll take that as well. So my business partners, one of them is the best at business negotiation. For example, I don't say a single word. Like when I say stay in my lane, once we're on the phone with the seller, on the three-way call, I'll say two words. I'll say hello and I'll say goodbye. I don't say a third word on the entire phone call because I know any word I say will take away from his super talent to do what he's doing the best. So we are having very clear divide and conquer on who's going to be doing what. And another one of my joint venture partners is great at property management, so he takes care of all the day-to-day operation part of it. So that's how we get to buy those deals. And people do not need to do 100% of the activities. People need to do 1/3 or 25% and still make the deal work, as great as possible.
Wow, man, that's powerful. That's super, super powerful. And I guess now you're working with people that everybody is truly an expert in a specific area or niche. And so you put them together and it's like a Voltron, like super, super robot where it's just unstoppable because you guys it's not one person trying to do it all, because one person will never be awesome at all those, to the same level as somebody who specializes. That's awesome. So tell me also about, and by the way, Peter's the same way when he says two words in the podcast. Usually it's hello and goodbye. And then I fill in all the gap in between.
Hello, goodbye. No, so listen, here's the thing, Jeff. So I got a question for you because you just busted a whole bunch of myths about this can't be done, that can't be done. We can't run the business this way and all that kind of stuff, right? And I've had sometimes coaching conversation with students, well, I don't have money or whatever the case may be to be able to do these deals. What you just showed us here on the podcast is all this stuff can be totally done. My question to you is right now, because obviously there's in between, how many partners do you have in a deal we're talking about here? On average.
Each deal is different. So the last deal we closed on, I think that deal was closed last week. In terms of the active partners, we have 4. In terms of the limited partners, we have 4 active partners and 10 plus inactive partners.
And are they the capital contributors? The inactive partners are the capital? Okay.
All right. So as far as even the active partners, right? How do you find them? How do you create that trust? Because obviously there's got to be some trust, right? And there's got to be some way that you're looking. How do you vet them? What was the process for you to be able to go and say, hey, you know what? Let's do a deal together.
Absolutely.
Because that's one of the things that I see a lot of people deal with, as far as partners, okay, who do I do this with,
Absolutely. I'll say, Peter, this is a great question. I think this is probably the hardest part in this business is not the real estate, right? People think, buy real estate, right or wrong real estate. Real estate comes second, just like strategy comes second. But finding the right partner, in my opinion, is 80% of the success in this business, but not the actual real estate part. So to answer your question, it takes time. It takes a lot of deals to develop those relationships. And, I can kind of share with you, one of the partners, for example, we met a few years ago at one of the industry events. It was, let's keep in touch and do some deals. And, we bought a 5-unit apartment together and still enjoying working with one another. Let's try to do another deal. The next deal we bought was a 48-unit. We still enjoying. The next deal we bought was 125-unit. Now leads to our 5th deal together, right? So it takes a lot of time and communication and deals to get to know someone. And the second partner too, met at the event and, doing, what's the size of our first deal? I think the first is out of 51 unit or 24 unit, it takes multiple deals and communication to get to know one another. And right now we're not just business partners. We're also, families. They know my family. I know their family. We hang out, it just relationship grow from there. And the fourth partner actually is someone that get connected from the Life and Air, who is actually our very first deal together. But I think we really enjoying our working relationship and personal relationship. And, I think we're going to do more deals together as well. So it takes a lot of time and, back and forth and trial and error and deals to get to where we are today.
Yeah, I think I have an idea who you're talking about too. So listen, so working, there's a timing that happens when they're working with them, close relationships, getting to know each other outside of the actual business. That's what I'm kind of hearing too. You get to know them outside of the business structure, how they deal with families and things like that. Any other things that you're looking for in partners? Are you looking for how they operate certain things or, sort of give an idea?
Yeah, absolutely. I think who the person is way more important than a specific skill set or background that person has. And the reason why I say that is because, I know, many people, and I think all of us have a pretty broad network here. And, some people I just don't feel it, about the person. So I love to have a person share, very similar core value that I am, someone who has an abundance mindset, someone who has a very, very heavy emphasis, on the family, someone ideally is really good at real estate, and most of my business partner came from the same faith as me as well. That's also very important to me as well. So I think I'll look at the person for who that person is first as a person, even before I look at, show me your, bio about real estate, for example. So.
Got it. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, man. Yeah. So now, do all of your business partners share like that you have now? Like, so, because you've set these businesses up in a way that, you can still do all the things with your family that is so important to you that you want. And so do your business partners share that same perspective? Like, are you guys all on the same page with that?
Yep. Very much so. I have very candid, conversation with, people. Hey guys, my wife and I have been married for 7 times, and we have been married for 7 years, not 7 times. I'm sorry. We've been married.
Okay. Like
Maybe we need to talk about something else here.
Yeah, that's right. So we've been married for 7 years, Chloe, and you guys have met, and we've been moving, 7 different times, and we just love to explore a different part of it. Is that okay? And, that's how from the very beginning, the business set up such that it does not require me to be physically there in order for the asset to run. Like, for example, right now, a few assets, every single rent checks from those 400 or 500 tenants are being collected, and, everything. And they're all good with that, and they understand where I'm coming from. And also at the same time, I would encourage them to, hey, spend as much time with your family as possible, and let's try to outsource, and let's try to leverage other, vendors' time, so that we can just really focus on one to two things that we do the best in this business. That's the key. Because if, we work on the $20 an hour job for 5 hours, it's a disservice to ourselves, it's a disservice to our families, it's a disservice to our business partners, right? So let's all focus on those $500, $1,000 an hour job that we do the best, and let the rest of the system take care of the rest. So talk about that a little bit, Jeff, because like ultimately I think that's where a lot of business owners or investors get hung up, is they look at these as an expense. They're like, hey, I can net more on the bottom line, looking at the number itself, not the cost to life, if I do it myself. And yet you're basically saying like, hey, you're never going to have the freedom you want, be able to spend the time you want if you're trying to do it all yourself. And you've learned ways to automate, delegate, systemize, things like that. Talk about have you always been this way, or did you learn that? And how does that actually play out in the business? Absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely a learning process, order for sure. Even though I was fortunate to, be able to observe a family who was very, very entrepreneurial, but that mindset is something that I need to learn from, coaches and masterminds and books and et cetera. And the key word I used, right, is an expense. So that's how I used to look at, things as well. But I would like to replace that word expense with the word investments. Every single investments that we made, whether it's to an employee, to a VA, to, the system, to vendor, I look at it as investments in a way that, in a sense that every single dollar that has been invested into it, how much time, how much more profit can be returned as an expense, as in return, right? So once we replace the word expense, expense with investment, everything changes. Then I'm looking at how can I invest more resources and more money and more time into things and people such that I can get $10 back for every dollar spent.
Yeah, man.
But the cool thing that you just said, I think that, I don't know if we caught it, but he said not only is it the investments about the time, not only about the money, but also the time, right? Does it return in money, or is it return in time for us? And I think a lot of times people focus on just the money side and not the time side. Why do I keep going and, changing my own toilets kind of a thing, right? For a rehabber. And I think that's a really good way of looking at it. It's a shift in the mindset thinking on how you go about making these investments. Cool, man. I like that.
Then the other thing I like, Jeff, that you said is like, because, sometimes I think people are mistaken and overestimate their own abilities when it comes to being able to do everything. And so what you said actually is one perspective of this is like, hey, I'm going to save money by doing it myself. But what I heard from you is not only is this paying off in terms of my time and be able to do maybe spending time with my family or doing higher wage level activities, more important things in the business, but actually you might even make more money. Let's say that you don't do an extra thing in the business and you don't take that time that you're not changing the toilets and you're just going to relax on a beach somewhere. Well, chances are that eventually by you having somebody who's better at those tasks is going to result in more profit for you, even if you don't dump that time back into the business. And so regardless of how much time you're spending with your family or whatever we're doing at that time, like just hiring people that are pros can actually, I love what you said, man. It's not an expense, it's an investment, which could earn a significant return for your bottom line. And so tell me, like, was this, I want to kind of dig in a little bit. You said, like, this is 80% mindset. Are you, and what is the scale of is this just like a fun for you thing? Like, at what point is how big are you going to grow this business? I mean, you have a substantial amount of assets already, and is there any end in sight? Is this a game for you? Is it fun? Do you know where you want to stop? Like, how does that play into your vision?
Sure.
He's going to be buying Hong Kong now. He's in Hong Kong over there.
Yeah, he owns half of Hong Kong.
Buying Hong Kong, right?
Right.
They have a pretty nice cap rate, like 1.5%, 1.4%. So definitely consider that.
See?
No, no, I'd love to answer that question, Woodrow, but if I can just go back for a second about the time is that Peter knows, we talk about books and stuff. I love the book. And one of the most powerful books I read in the last 12 months is the book Who Not How by Dan Sullivan. Basically, the book talks about every single questions, every single situation problem we have because of the education system, whether it's Chinese education system or the American education system. It teaches us how to ask the question, how can I solve that problem? Mm-hmm. So the book said, instead of asking the question, how, replace that how with who can I reach out to help me solve that problem? Once we replace that, everything changes. Right now, we look at problem. I don't think of how, I think of who can I reach out to have it solve? Because that's when our time, again, get you multiplied many, many times. So just one thing I want to say before, going to your question about what's the next. I mean, it's a good one, Woodrow. And I'll say that's part of the reason why it's joining a mastermind and having, surround myself and, ourselves, Chloe and I, with people in our life and near group is so important because, very fortunate and part of Steve Cook's group. And one of his things is to say no to more things than yes. Cause gosh, I mean, my mind just goes so fast. It's kind of been slowing down a little bit since joining Life and Air. Peter knows that, is to say no to more things than the yeses I say. What is enough? I think I mean, at the beginning of this year, I set a goal, what, if I can close 5 deals, that'd be great. I exceeded that goal. And I think as of last week, we closed 9 deals total. For next year, I say, what, if we can find just three super solid deals that we can close, that'd be great. If less, if more. On the flip side, I think goes back to the story I shared about my mom. One regret that she had of retiring right before she turned 50 is not to do that sooner. And I don't want that to be a regret that I will have. That being said, I think I love the business that I'm doing, but at the same time, I don't want to take the main focus off of it is the why, right? Why are we doing a business for? And I don't want to run into a situation where, like you guys jokingly said, right, we're going to buy half of Hong Kong and don't have any time for what's really important. So, I mean, I don't think the straight answer way to answer your question, but I'll say to answer it, I think 3 solid deals a year, and those deals will plan to hold a long term without hopefully ever selling it. So it's going to be residual income coming in. And at the meantime, just want to enjoy the ride and just spend 13 more summers with our 5-year-old and 18 more summers with our soon to be born as much as possible. So. Right.
How many hours a week do you typically shoot to work, or do you not have any guideline on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty cycle specific. Like the last 2 weeks before we closed that deal, gosh, I was working pretty long hours, probably 40, 50-ish. But once the deal is closed, I'll say on average, my goal is to get down to about 20, 25. Realistically, probably 30 to 35 hours of solid work, each week.
Yep. And like you said, it cycles. Like it's like there's seasons where you just got to be busy for a little period of time. Then you just it's just like the seasons. That makes a lot of sense. And so Art, go ahead, Peter.
No, go ahead. I got a question after that.
No, that's all right. Go ahead.
All right. So listen, I got a question for you, because one of the things that you said at the beginning of the podcast is one thing that you got out of your mom working for so long, right? I mean, she worked and, then she had a big regret, and that's the one thing that stuck with you. I'm curious because, I know you guys and I know your daughter, and she is just awesome. And now you got a new one coming up into your world. I don't know if it's a daughter or a boy, but here's my question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, awesome. Very cool. Congrats, by the way. My question to you is, when, let's say, your daughter turns 18 or 20, what's the one thing that you think that you wish that she would take away from you?
What's the one thing that I'm going to take away from my
that
mom?
She would take away from you. You took away something from your mom. What's the one thing that you wish to impart on your daughter that she takes away from you?
Gosh, if it's one thing, it's going to be so hard, Peter. If I can only pick one thing, but not the rest, I'll say definitely the faith part. If there's any one thing that my wife and I can give to our daughters, but nothing else, I'll say the faith. But after that, I'll say, I've been joking. I took our daughter Joy to some of our closing title office and teach her about cash flow. She'll ask me, she's 5 years old, and she'll say, "Hey, Dad, can I use liability to buy things?" And what's the cash flow, this and that. So I'll try to kind of give her the entrepreneurial, mindset, at a young age, like my mom kind of gave it to me, when I was as a teenager. So I think after faith is just the business mindset. Don't trade time for money, but to have residual income. And other than that, just a family and then friendship and relationship, because at the end of the day, that's what really matters.
That's awesome, man. So what advice would you have for somebody? Let's say that they're right now they are a wage slave. They are, working, they're trading time for money, like you talked about earlier. They want to be on this path. Like, what are some of the first steps or things that they need to do to start moving down this path towards residual income, towards passive cash flow, towards reprioritizing the most important things in their life, and get out of get off that treadmill? What advice would you give them?
I'll say, I think a few things just on top of my head, Roger. One is, the one book that impacted me and many others more than anything else on the mindset is Rich Dad Poor Dad, right? Because it kind of break down pretty nicely the 4 quadrants, employee, the left quadrant and the right quadrant. So I'll definitely recommend to pick up that book, because that's a great book, not on strategy, but on mindset. And the second of all is to ask why, right? A lot of people work their entire life and still are content with it. If someone wants to make a change, why is that? Why do you want to be able to have that time freedom? Why is that? And the third one is, like Jim Rohn said, right? You become the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. So if quitting the job, if having the residual income, if having the time freedom is something that the person really wants, then I'll say go out and try to find 5 people who has already done that or on the trajectory of doing that, and spend time with them, because over time you'll become one of those 5 people. So I think those are the 3 things that I would recommend.
Awesome. Dude, I want to thank you for being on the Life Inner Show. This has been an incredible episode. I really hope people see, you're an inspiration, man. Like, you really have, and now of course you had a little bit of a head start with your knowledge from your W-2 with the REITs and stuff, but everything that you've done, is an example of what can be done when you have the right mindset, when you're around the right people, when you take these steps that you're talking about. So I really want to thank you for being on the show, bro.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me here. And just a plug in for the book, Life on Air, another great book that Steve Cook wrote. Anyone who's listened to this podcast have not read a book yet, highly recommend it. It's a great book, not just on strategy, but also on the mindset about having a balanced life. So
awesome. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you so much, guys.
Man, I really like Jeff. That was an awesome episode. Dude, I got to tell you, let's talk about some of our favorite parts here. Like, first of all, I love his analogy, which I've never in all of my life heard about a watermelon and grapes. And I love it, man. There's so many different applications and spinoffs as that. He's working with people he likes. He's doing and he's staying in his lane. He's doing what he's really good at. He's getting other people to do the things that they're good at. And just the results for, they compound. It's not the way most people do things.
Yeah. And it's this whole idea of remember, we talked about before about the big companies that are very successful, right? They bring the people who are best and what they do,
Yeah.
And they fill those gaps in the teams in the company. Well, that's what he's doing here in his own business. He's focusing on the part that he really loves, that he's really good at. He brings somebody else who is really good at that. And basically you have this team of rock stars.
It's like all-stars. It's like an all-star team, you know? It's like a regular football team versus like the Pro Bowl. Like, you know what I mean? Like you got all the superstars. It was awesome.
For the lack of a better word, I don't want to say, fine, I'll say it just for your benefit. It's like Patriots playing Lions. Happy now?
Hurt, I know that hurt this come out of your mouth, so I appreciate that.
That hurt coming out, yes.
So, all right. So what one of your favorite parts?
Well, one of the things that I really love that he was talking about, the lessons that he learned in life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? One of the things that, look at the thing that he had conversation with his mom had an impact. And it had an impact on how he is structuring his own life and what he's looking to impart in his own daughter. You know, I asked him towards the end of the episode about what's the one thing that he hopes to pass on to his daughter. And he's like, don't trade time for money. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And being entrepreneur and things like that. And that's a cool thing to be able to, because not just about your girl, but it's about people who are around you and your family. And I love that part when he was talking about that.
Dude, that was great.
How about you?
You know, I also loved how he talked about his other belief that like basically everything he does has the end goal of creating passive residual cash flow. And he doesn't want to be basically a transaction engineer. He doesn't want to be someone who makes money once and then it's done. Like, hey, what can I do to make money from here forward? Like, you know, what can I do instead of making a one and done? What can I do to kind of, because basically cash flow is like the lifeblood of our personal lives and our business. And so he is sidestepping all of those steps that people typically think they have to go through at the beginning. Like, you know, a lot of times people think they got to make a whole lot of money before they can start to worry about, you know, cash flow. And he's got just kind of totally sidestepped that. And he's living off of cash flow because all of his efforts are going there. And so I also thought it was really interesting how he thought, you know, that's his mindset, right? And it starts with that. And so when you have that mindset, you approach tasks differently. You approach the way you look at your business differently. Like, you know, it's no longer, I'm going to go in there and get it done, but it's like, how can I set somebody else to do this? Not just this once, but every time. Like you brought up the example of changing toilets, right? How can I get somebody to go in there every time a toilet is broken? And that way that, you know, he creates that passive cash flow with the time freedom that he desires.
Yeah. One other thing that he talked about too is, you know, typically we think about income expenses, right? Income expenses in business. And what I heard when he was talking about his way of looking at things, it's almost like residual income investments, residual income investments as opposed to income expenses.
Well,
and
dude,
that mindset shift has allowed him to grow his business in a completely different way, because now when it comes to going and hiring somebody, when it comes to going and investing in this particular platform or whatever the case may be, he looks at it from a different perspective to see, okay, is this a good investment? Is this investment going to return us time or money for us? And that's the other thing that he touched on is, or both, right? It's not just about returning on money. It's also returning about time. Yeah. Because if you just focus on money, guess what? Sometimes a lot of people just focus on what's the investment that's going to give me a return on money, and they forget about the time part, and they get stuck in this, you know, vortex of working 100 hours a week.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, that was awesome how he said basically it's not an expense, it's an investment. And he looks at everything that way, whether it's an employee, a tool, whatever. It's all an investment towards in the business. The last thing I think I really, really liked is he talked about, you know, you asked the great question of how to find partners. And he talked about like, it's really two things. What I heard was it's the person themselves and things like their characteristics and their traits and their personality and their belief system. Are we aligned on a lot of different things? Does this person have integrity? Do we have a trust for each other? Are we, you know, do we have similar beliefs and viewpoints? And then also he said, and you know, that comes first. And then ideally they're good in real estate. And so ideally they have skills and you want somebody to bring something to the table. Right. But I thought that was an interesting dynamic as well. And he didn't say this, but I'm inferring from his discussion, like, you know, one of these partners or a couple of them, he said he met him at like industry specific educational events or trade shows, or I don't remember if it was a trade show or an event, but basically by being around people that are kind of in your niche and exposing yourself to people that are, and he mentioned life in here as well, by exposing to people that are on similar journeys or on similar paths, you're increasing your chances of running into these kinds of people. You're not just going to run into this person most likely at Starbucks or, at Home Depot, maybe Home Depot for a contractor, but you got to surround yourself with the people that eventually could lead to partnerships. Like you got to get around them. You got to get to know them. You got to develop relationships with them. And that's how those things flourish slowly over time, right? He said they started small with 5 unit, then they went to the larger one. And so it takes, you got to nurture these things.
Right. And I think what has him do that is he talked about the book, that he started asking the question, who, not how, right? Who, not how. And I talk to my students about this all the time. I say, listen, who do you need to talk to? Who do you need to reach out to, right? Ask the question who, not the how, because how we get stuck on a how, and that how is only the thing that we know based on our own experiences, right?
So true.
And it's very limited. It's only about maybe 5 or 10% of what's actually possible out there. Yeah. So ask the question who, and I think that's how he goes and connects with all these people, because he constantly asks who, and then becomes an owl.
I was going there with that too.
What? See,
you beat me. You beat me.
Myself, yeah. But anyway, then when you do that, all of a sudden your life starts to alter because you align yourself with people who will help you get on your vision. And we didn't touch on that, but I know for a fact that he has a vision. He has a strong vision, and I'm not sure, but I imagine that he actually shares that vision with those partners.
Yep. For sure.
Goes, okay, this is my vision. But
because that would cause conflict otherwise. Like if his partner's expected him to work 80 hours a week and he's like, nope, that would cause conflict. So totally true. Awesome episode, man. Jeff's awesome. Really grateful for him and for him being on the show. And so listen, if you want to Jeff's posting in the Life in Your app all the time, man. I see him over there. You want to be part of the conversation. You want to learn more about what Jeff's doing and other successful Life in Yours, head on over to the app. It's free. Go to lifeinyour.com to learn more about that. Also, this episode is airing sometime in December of 2021. I'm not sure the exact date. Depends on, I don't know what the queue looks like, but I know it'll be come out in December. So here's what I want you to think about. Next year, we are doing 2 business builder workshops. These are workshops designed to help you create a business that does not require you. Peter and I teach these personally. We're going to walk you through our SEED process, SEAD. It stands for the Strategic Automation, Elimination, and Delegation. Oh, wait, that's right. Elimination, automation, delegation.
Strategic elimination.
Yeah, I got confused there. Too many Asians.
Delegation.
And so this is how you create a business that doesn't require you to be in there doing the work, so that you have the time for your family, you have the time for the things you enjoy, you love, you want more of. And so I'd encourage you to go to lifeinyour.com and you can look at the upcoming events. I think only one of them is on the books right now, and that's for Raleigh in April. But there's another one coming too if you can't make April. So keep an eye out for that. And I really want to encourage you to attend that as well, because that'll really help you create a business that you love and that gives you a full-time income with part-time effort. All right. Hope you've enjoyed this episode. We can't wait to see you next time. Everyone take care and God bless.